Growing up, my family became acquainted with a husband and wife who bought an old Victorian home. This was the same house my parents had originally considered when we moved to the area. They got along really well with this couple, and over the years, our families practically became one, working together to fix up and remodel the place. Terry and Dan, our friends, were great people we loved and trusted for decades. Even though they didn't have children of their own, they became like aunt and uncle figures to me. My parents, who hailed from the deep south, always teased Terry and Dan about the home being haunted. Terry and Dan, both having grown up in the Catholic Church, were more agnostic and openly mocked the idea of ghosts, at least initially. When Terry and Dan first moved in, they had to live on the first floor because it was the only habitable space. There was a small room off the kitchen, which used to be a servant's quarter and was rather creepy. This room had a wooden spiral staircase enclosed in a closet, leading to the second and third floors. Despite its oddity, it wasn't uncommon for higher-end Victorian homes. After about a month, the staircase began making strange noises at night, creaking, squeaking, and sometimes footsteps. Terry and Dan attributed it to the stairs expanding and making old beams pop and squeak. However, one time, Terry went upstairs with Dan and noticed a distinct smell of tobacco and vanilla in the upper floor rooms, a scent never experienced during the day. Curiously, the odd occurrences continued. Terry and Dan occasionally woke up to the sounds of the staircase and investigated, finding nothing. Eventually, due to moisture damage, they decided to tear out the staircase altogether. During their time on the first floor, they also noticed strange behavior in their chihuahua. The dog would growl at unseen entities, bark at corners, and act skittish, unlike its usual happy demeanor. One day, Terry found the dog stuck between two sliding doors, as if something unseen was pulling it through. This, coupled with the strange sounds, led them to reconsider the paranormal jokes. As they progressed with the remodeling, things seemed to calm down for a while. However, a few years later, they experienced a terrifying night. Terry woke up to loud sounds on the first floor, resembling a lively party with music, laughter, and talking. The vibrations and resonance were so intense that she could feel them directly below their second-floor bedroom. Suddenly, the noise ceased, and she heard a group of people walking up the grand staircase. It sounded like a large gathering initially, but the footsteps dwindled as they reached the top. Terrified, Terry heard a conversation in their bedroom, voices of two women, one old, one young, saying dreadful things about her appearance and insisting she leave the house. When she uncovered her face, the apparitions disappeared. Dan, who seemingly hadn't heard the party downstairs, did hear the entire conversation with the ghosts. Despite this, he remained stoic and chose to ignore the strange events. However, Terry felt increasingly uneasy and watched in every room. One winter, Dan got snowed in during a construction job, leaving Terry alone in the house with their two dogs. One night, she experienced a horrifying series of events. A loud boom shook the house, and the room filled with an awful droning noise. The light in the room turned red, and she saw the chandelier's candle bulbs transform into glowing red Virgin Mary statuettes, melting onto the bed. Terrified, she ran downstairs, but something unseen grabbed her and pushed her against a wall. She managed to escape, ran out into the blizzard, leaving the front door open, and sought refuge at our house. The police were called, but they found no signs of forced entry or disturbances. This incident prompted Terry and Dan to seek help from the local church. A Presbyterian preacher walked around the house, reciting verses from the Bible, and advised them to ask the ghosts to leave. Miraculously, the disturbances stopped overnight. As they resumed remodeling and prepared to sell the house, strange occurrences surfaced again. Running footsteps, mysterious humming, and a sensation of being watched persisted. Yet, when Terry and Dan asked the ghosts to leave, everything ceased. Upon researching the house's history, they discovered it was originally a girls' college in the 1800s, later becoming a boarding house, an infirmary, and finally a family mansion. The ghosts seemed to be connected to a family that once lived there, particularly a short old woman and a homely young woman, likely relatives of the last owner. The house's unsettling aura persisted, especially in one room on the second floor. Although remodeled into a spare bedroom, the room felt eerie and unsettling. Even my dad, who was generally stoic, found it weird and uncomfortable. However, after the staircase was removed, the strange occurrences in that part of the house ceased. The house was eventually sold, but the paranormal events lingered briefly for the new owners. They struggled with their daughter, who claimed a little girl wanted to play at night. Terry advised them to ask the spirits to leave, and the disturbances stopped. As for the mysterious little girl in the photos, her identity remains unknown. The house's history, though, sheds light on the ghost's possible origins. Despite the unsettling experiences, I, as a child, never felt scared in the house. Perhaps my early gesture of placing flowers in the foyer as a 3-year-old had fostered a sense of acceptance. In the end, the house's eerie tales faded as the new owners moved in. The stories, however, left an indelible mark on the history of the old Victorian mansion.